7:09 is the time. The long-planned Turkish military operation in northeast Syria has been launched, just days after American troops pulled out of the area.
It's a move widely condemned, with world powers fearing the offensive could threaten security in the region and revive the so-called Islamic State group. Our Middle East editor Jeremy Bowen looks at the potential wider impact.
The Turks have made their move because of their long and bitter battle with Kurdish separatists. This was fighting in one of the mainly Kurdish towns in eastern Turkey in 2016. For the Turks, the move into northeastern Syria is a continuation of that fight. Kurdish separatists in Turkey, the PKK, have strong connections with Syrian Kurds. The Turkish state regards all the armed groups as terrorists. But it's much more complicated than that because of the fight against the jihadist extremists of Islamic State. While the US, Britain and others bombed the self-styled caliphate, as IS called the territory it seized, most of the house-to-house combat was done by the same Syrian Kurdish fighters that Turkey is now targeting as terrorists. Since the caliphate was destroyed and recaptured, Kurdish fighters, women serving alongside men, have been a key part of the battle against the remnants of IS. The job isn't over. The caliphate has gone, but the ideology and sleeper cells remain. Now, Kurds of the SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces, say they can't continue fighting IS if they have to fight Turkey, and IS has potentially been handed a big opportunity.
Well, let's talk to someone now who knows that region well. Mesa Gifford volunteered to fight with the Kurdish forces between 2014 and 2017 and joins us now. Very good morning to you. There is no point pretending this is straightforward. It is a complicated scenario and people are trying to grasp what's happening. You have a very personal attachment to what happened there. Just give me, first of all, a sense of what you see is happening.
Well, this is a real betrayal for the partners on the ground of the United States and Britain. You've got to remember now that the Kurds were the ones who took the fight to ISIS. 11,000 of them died in the process. They liberated places like Raqqa and Baghouz. And they believe in secular democracy. These are people who have conducted a revolution to liberate their homes from ISIS, said to the Americans and to the Brits that they would create a secular society, one where feminism was a core component, very refreshing ideas right in the heart of a very conservative Middle East, and America's thrown them to the wolves.
So in essence, you're seeing that Turkey is targeting fighters who previously had targeted ISIS.
Absolutely. So the Kurds are a major component of the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces. They've been fighting the Islamic State for years and were incredibly successful. They've captured something like 70,000 ISIS fighters and their families. And these people are fanatics. They're incredibly dangerous. And the chance that Turkey and its proxies in the Syrian civil war might attack northern Syria, and in the conflict these people were to get out of jail, then it would have a huge impact, not just on Syria but on Europe as well, as thousands of these people might try and get back to Europe.
Now, one of the reasons we're talking to you is because of your knowledge of what happened there, and the reason you have this knowledge is you've fought alongside Kurdish forces, as we said, between 2014 and 2017. And I will say the UK government does not approve of anyone taking action like that, but you did this anyway. What happens next in terms of resources? What do you foresee happening to those Kurdish forces as effectively resources dwindle and the fronts change?
Well, so conflict is exploited by groups like ISIS, who wedge themselves wherever there's division and use it to their own ends. In eastern Syria, we have peace. The SDF were incredibly successful against ISIS. As I said, they were creating a society based on equality with the American support, with British support, because British troops were on the ground as well. So our resources, well, they should have put more resources in, if I'm honest, and we should have come up with a strategy to actually work with local forces to put these people in jail.
Who are they? Who are the people who are fighting now?
So the SDF is a mixed group it's a multi-ethnic and multi-faith force. It's made up of Syriacs, local Arabs, Kurds and Yazidis, and the Americans created the group in 2015. And as I said, it was very refreshing to see groups coming together in this way, because the rest of the the country has fallen apart. And it's because of these ideals of democracy and secular values and equality that was so successful against ISIS, because since then there's been no insurgency. There's peace in eastern Syria, where now there's only going to be war.
Can I just ask, we've seen some of the images of these early assaults. Are you still in contact with people you fought alongside?
Yes.
And what have they told you about what's happened?
Well, people do feel betrayed. I was there for 3 years. I fought in Raqqa, which was a terrible battle. I was there for 5 months in this city. 600 SDF were also killed in that fight. And I think people, for the first time, felt hope after ISIS was gone. It was difficult. Their homes were destroyed, communities were destroyed, but there was a real chance to get people who had fled the country before back into the country and start rebuilding. Just a few weeks ago, the Kurds launched the curriculum for the schools, and kids were going back to school. Now, that's a very different picture is emerging now, as Turkey is planning to go 32 kilometres into Syria, and in the south, around Deir ez-Zor, the oil fields, Assad and Iran will no doubt exploit the violence for their ends there.
And of course, President Erdogan of Turkey has said this is all with the purpose of creating a safe zone. It's defending itself.
Well, it's already a safe zone. The Americans had liberated, alongside the locals, 30% of Syria. Turkey is waging war.
President Trump has withdrawn US troops from the area.
He's withdrawn them. And that 30%, which was once peaceful, is now under threat by Turkey and its proxies. So we mustn't forget who the aggressors are here. Turkey, if it goes in, is going to cause hundreds of thousands of refugees. People who had hope once have now lost it. So what I would hope to see is that Britain and America will urge Trump, the rest of America will urge Trump to go back on this decision and actually double down on support for locals.
Mesa, thank you very much for your time this morning. Interesting hearing your
Thank
thoughts. Mesa Gifford, who fought alongside those Kurdish fighters, giving his thoughts on what is happening there as we speak. And we'll catch up with our correspondent a little later on this morning.